Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Talking Shit with your boy Sophisticated Jerk. And today, man, I just wanted to go over this clip that I found, man. I thought it was pretty interesting because, up in Pennsylvania, they said 9,000 teachers left the teaching profession up in 2024. So, it just kind of intrigued my interest and stuff. So I did talk to a couple people that was in the field that I know from like different states. And I was just asking them, I'm like, is this a trend that you're seeing, play out in your states? And they did kind of confirm that, hey, a lot of teachers are leaving the field and stuff. So some of the things that they kind of pointed out, and I think they might get to it in this video, I'm not sure. But, they said, with the low pay, it's kind of harder now with rising costs that, a lot of teachers just can't, afford to be in that profession and stuff. So they are going into different career fields and stuff like that. Then also, I didn't ask him about this one, but I just could kind of understand that it seems like a lot of kids are just bad as hell. And you have a lot of parents that, back in the day, we used to give the teacher the benefit of the doubt. And then if they kind of, I guess, talked to the parents and told them about how the kid was behaving, it was almost like the parents would side with the teachers. But nowadays, it seems like the parents are damn near on the kid's side and stuff. So I could see a lot of, teachers not wanting to deal with students with bad behaviors. And then it also seemed like, the teaching field got politicized to the point where they're blamed for everything. So, if parents don't work with their kids, after school or make them do anything and, they might be behind, a teacher might have 30 kids in their class and, when they test scores come, they're kind of blamed like, oh, they're not really teaching them anything. So it's just like they're in a bad position and the pay's not high. So they're probably just like, you know what, fuck this. Cause I don't blame them. Cause I could have been with no kid like 8 hours a day. I'm sorry. So that's why I never, talk bad about teachers. Cause I'm like, shit, if I don't want to be around them for like 30 minutes, I could just imagine somebody doing like, 8 hours a day and stuff. And they were with them and they were with low pay. I'll be up out of there. So I always gave teachers respect. I never blamed them for like, if a kid is getting held behind. Cause I feel like as a parent, you should be, bringing your kid up to speed, whether you got to get tutors and stuff. So, but let me go ahead and jump into this video and, maybe they'll break down some of these theories or some of these thoughts that I have.
It's back to school week here on KDK. Every day we're going to be sharing special stories and segments in our morning and evening news, as well as on Pittsburgh Today Live and Talk Pittsburgh.
And tonight we're tackling the topic of the national teacher shortage. KDK lead investigator Andy Sheehan takes a look at the reasons behind it and what can be done to turn the tide.
Like a math problem on a final exam, the question of why teachers are...
I ain't gonna lie, if they get in this video and they kind of talk like how I do, like, man, fuck these kids, I'm gonna die laughing. That would be the realest shit. They'd be like, you know what? I just got fucking tired of these kids. They don't listen. They bad as hell. Their parents ain't shit. I want to see somebody vent like that. They probably won't, but can I wish a little bit?
Believing the profession is a complex one.
I'm like teaching phonics, teaching math, teaching literacy and writing and trying to get the kids to move.
But unlike the exam, there's not one right answer to the problem.
In our world, we have a ton of problems, and there's hardly ever one Band-Aid solution that'll work.
Stagnant teacher salaries, poor working conditions, opportunities in higher paying careers, and a lack of support for new teachers are factors in the subtraction.
Why would I subject myself to this? Like, I can go work somewhere else and make about the same money and not have to deal with that.
Professor Edward Fuller teaches future teachers at Penn State Center for Education Evaluation and Policy Analysis. He also studies why people don't become teachers.
College has become increasingly expensive. When tuition goes up now, it's like, well, I'm going to go into a profession that doesn't pay great.
And why teachers leave. Last year, nearly...
That's a good point right there. Because, like, if you got to go to a university, you got to spend on them costs, and you're not really going to... should they rethink, I guess, the design of the teaching program? Like, because I know, like, with RNs or nurses, they got, like, 2-year programs, and, they could come out making very good money going to, like, a community college, because my son is kind of going that route. So he's only got to do 2 years. It's minimal cost. So do they need to go to maybe like a design like that for teachers where it's like they could get their degree through a community college? And, if they receive some grants, it's like they damn near will have minimal student loans. So it's like they got to find some way to incentivize it. But shout out to Ed. Ed was like, hey, man, I ain't fucking with it. I'm going to be over here. I'll teach the teachers. So shout out to him being smart.
9,000 teachers left the profession in Pennsylvania.
That's a big number.
7% of teachers working in the Commonwealth. And that's actually an improvement because the year before, 9,500 left. And the number of newly certified teachers is nowhere near what it will take to replace them. Just 5,600 certifications were issued last year.
But there are
So just think about that number, though. In 2 year span, that's 18,000 that left around that. And they only replaced it with like 5,000. So it's just like, man, when people are constantly beating up on them and the low wages, eventually, are they going to have to go to like a partial online model? Because I mean, you can only fill up the classrooms by so much. So unless you could put your kid in like private school, man, you're kind of, are you going to teach at home? I don't know how you're going to fix this model, man. So, I mean, I'm thinking eventually you got to bump up the pay. You gotta do something.
so many obstacles, not just in Pennsylvania and in Pittsburgh, all over the country. Why would anybody want to be a teacher?
Yassim Dowsimer taught for more than a decade in New York City before moving to Pittsburgh in 2017. She eventually got a job teaching at an elementary school in Larimer, where she worked until 2022.
There's just not enough compensation for the amount that teachers have to do. I had kids who had learning disabilities, health issues like diabetes, and parents needed support.
One stopgap measure school districts are increasingly turning to as shortages increase is emergency certifications that don't require a teacher to have gone through a program or spent time as a student teacher.
We can flood schools with teachers. They won't teach very well, but we'll have more than enough teachers. And that's what we have now, right? In Pennsylvania, we have over 8,000 people on emergency permits, but they're not certified to teach.
Professor Fuller says here in southwestern PA, our teacher shortage is not as bad as it could be.
Part of it is because nobody's moving to the western part, right? It's so it's easier. You don't have to find additional teachers on top of the ones you already have.
In Allegheny County, where there are more than 10,700 teachers, the Pennsylvania Department of Education estimates there's a shortage of 397, with 3% of teachers on emergency permits. Compare that to Philly, where there's a shortage of nearly 3,600 teachers, with nearly a quarter on emergency permits.
It looks really good compared to Philadelphia.
But not being Philly isn't enough to attract and retain teachers here. Dowsimer says beyond the baseline of better salaries, young teachers need more mentors and support.
How are we compensating and thinking about compensating teachers that want to coach younger teachers? How are we compensating younger teachers who are great leaders, grow quickly, and want to be a part of admin?
One approach is certifying more teachers, pay them while they're learning. Last year, lawmakers increased funding to $20 million to support more than 2,100 student teachers with $10,000 stipends. However, the state says more than 4,000 student teachers applied. Governor Shapiro proposed budget for 2025-26 would double the program's funding to $40 million. But the budget is still in front of the legislature, past its deadline by more than a month.
That's what I mean by we're not prioritizing education.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a lot of money when a lot of states are cash strapped, but it's one of those things, like, especially parents, it's like, man, what do you do? Because I mean, if you can't afford, like I said, the private school, you gotta kind of advocate for your kids, man, because you do need teachers. So I think sometimes, man, people play ignorant to some of this stuff, but it's like, man, y'all got to get the teachers, and we do got to compensate them. We got to make it better, or you got to come up with some creative solutions. So that's why I was like, what should it be like more somewhat online part-time, where you get to like your junior, senior year, where you're like partially at the school because, you know, maybe you're doing like the trade program, stuff like that. I know some schools do that, like tech programs and stuff, are even just more embracing more online. So they got to do something at this point, because I mean, it's a big shortage.
This country. If we would see more for teachers to be able to get through these certification requirements, these things that cost money. We would see their salaries going up higher.
Fuller says the impact of having more qualified teachers in classrooms is enormous in students' educational outcomes. He says research continually shows that aside from parents, teachers are the most important factor in influencing student learning. Andy Sheehan, KDKA TV News.
I was just wondering though, would they, because like to fill some of them gaps, will they take people, say like they retired from like working in the business industry, different fields and stuff, maybe have a shorter certification period where they ain't got to go all the way back to school and stuff? Like maybe you have some people that were engineers or worked in the federal government that maybe retired there that want to come and, you know, help out in the schools that got like a good background and stuff. You know, could they certify those type of people to help fill them gaps? You know, getting creative where they don't have to do the whole full blown thing. Maybe you could like have a shorter program because they, you know, came from solid backgrounds that, you know, you could do the background checks on them or something like that. So I think they got to get creative. They got to start cutting something down. And like I was saying with the RN program, you know, it's 2 years at, you could get them at a lot of community college where it's like cheaper and stuff like that. So I think they got to do that for school teachers. Cause yeah, if you're going to like a major university, you got to take out all them student loans, and now you got a whole nother thing because you're making lower salary. You got to pay back them loans. So now I hope they fix it, man. Cause like I said, you know, if you got kids, and I think most people going to eventually have a kid, or you already got kids in the system, you know, you do want them to get good education. That's critical nowadays. But all right, y'all, man, leave y'all comments. I definitely want to hear people's comments and creative things and stuff like that. Let me know if this is a trend in other places. Definitely want to know. But all right, y'all, peace.